the majority of U.S. participants. The UN Security Council threatened renewed economic sanctions. The confrontation continued into November as Iraq expelled the remaining 6 U.S. inspectors and the United Nations withdrew other inspectors in protest. Inspectors were readmitted after the United States and Britain again began a military build-up in the Gulf. However, late in November, Iraq announced it will not allow inspectors access to sites designated as palaces and official residences. UN officials protested, having long suspected that such sites were being used to conceal possible weapons of mass destruction. On October the 31st, 1998, Iraq announced that it had decided to stop all forms of cooperation with UNSCOM and its chairman and stop all activities inside Iraq, including monitoring, until the UN Security Council reviewed the lifting of sanctions. The Security Council unanimously condemned the decision and demanded that it be reversed immediately and unconditionally. Following the end of Operation Desert Storm in March, a rebellion by Shiite Muslims in southern Iraq defeated by Iraq's elite Republican Guard. This was followed by a Kurdish insurrection that was also defeated. The United States, Great Britain and France created a safe haven for the Kurds north of the 36th parallel and banned Iraqi planes from the area. In August 1992, the United Nations established a no-fly zone along the 32nd parallel after Iraq launched renewed attacks against Shiite Muslims. The United States and its allies began patrolling the no-fly zone, operations which continue today. The United States has a constant $1 billion a year presence in the region, maintaining no-fly zones in northern and southern Iraq. Many times, Iraqi aircraft have dangerously dipped in and out of the northern and southern no-fly zones over Iraq, taunting US and British aircraft to chase them into the range of anti-aircraft weaponry. In December 1992, the US planes intercepted and shot down an Iraqi MiG-25 that violated the no-fly zone. Iraqi anti-aircraft artillery batteries and surface-to-air missile sites have regularly targeted the coalition aircraft, enforcing the no-fly zones. In response, Western aircraft have launched devastating retaliatory raids, destroying as much as 20% of Iraq's air defense capabilities as well as other military assets. The Iraqi president has reportedly offered a cash reward to any of his air defense pilots who shoot down a US aircraft or capture an American pilot. Yet so far, no US plane has been lost, and according to US analysts, the chances are slim that anyone will collect on the Iraqi president's bounty. On many occasions, the Iraqi president has tried to provoke and challenge the US and the Allied forces, and each time the response from the US and the Allied forces was tough and strong. In January 1993, the United States accused the Iraqi president of moving missiles into southern Iraq. Iraq refuses to remove the missiles. Allied planes and ships attacked the missile sites and nuclear facility near Baghdad. In June of the same year, following the discovery of a plot to assassinate former President George Bush while he was visiting the state of Kuwait, US ships fired 24 cruise missiles at intelligence headquarters in Baghdad. Also in 1994, the Iraqi leader moved his troops to the Kuwaiti border. The forces withdrew after the United States deployed a carrier group, warplanes, and 54,000 troops to the Gulf region.
The men and women of our armed forces, under the strong leadership of President Bush, General Powell, and General Schwarzkopf, fought to expel Iraq from Kuwait and to protect our interests in that vital region. Today, we remain committed to defending the integrity of that nation and to protecting the stability of the Gulf region. Saddam Hussein has shown the world before, with his acts of aggression and his weapons of mass destruction, that he cannot be trusted. Iraq's troop movements and threatening statements in recent days are more proof of this. In 1990, Saddam Hussein assembled a force on the border of Kuwait and then invaded. Last week, he moved another force toward the same border. Because of what happened in 1990, this provocation requires a strong response from the United States and the international community. Over the weekend, I ordered the George Washington Carrier Battle Group, cruise missile ships, a Marine Expeditionary Brigade, and an Army Mechanized Task Force to the Gulf. And today, I have ordered the additional deployment of more than 350 Air Force aircraft to the region. We will not allow Saddam Hussein to defy the will of the United States and the international community. Iraq announced today that it will pull back its troops from the Kuwait border. But we're interested in facts, not promises, in deeds, not words. And we have not yet seen evidence that Iraq's troops are in fact pulling back. We'll be watching very closely to see that they do so. Our policy is clear. We will not allow Iraq to threaten its neighbors or to intimidate the United Nations as it ensures that Iraq never again possesses weapons of mass destruction. Moreover, the sanctions will be maintained until Iraq complies with all relevant UN resolutions. That is the answer to Iraq's sanctions problem. Full compliance, not reckless provocation.
The Iraqi threats toward the state of Kuwait still continue today. Only recently, the elder son of the Iraqi president proposed to the Iraqi National Council a new map of Iraq, which includes the state of Kuwait. In response, the Kuwait National Assembly issued a statement denouncing the recent announcement by the Iraqi regime indicating its aggressive intentions toward the state of Kuwait, while the Arab nation is exerting its utmost to overcome the repercussions of the criminal Iraqi aggression of 1990. The House's statement described the Iraqi move as a contradictory to the current situation, since the Arab nation badly needs to achieve solidarity and correlation and to unite its ranks in order to face the stubborn Israeli positions regarding the legitimate and historic right of the Palestinian people. The National Assembly affirmed that the Iraqi regime and its leadership have ignored the current facts by instructing the Iraqi National Council to include the state of Kuwait in the map of Iraq in a flagrant challenge to the state of Kuwait, to its neighbors, to the world community, to the United Nations and its resolutions, and to the permanent members of the Security Council, as well as to the sovereignty and the independence of the World Organization's member states. The House called upon the world community for a decisive and deterrent stand toward the Iraqi allegations in order to prevent its avoidance of its international obligations regarding its aggression on Kuwait. The National Assembly expressed the state of Kuwait's gratitude and recognition of the GCC states and the Arab and friendly countries that had rushed to refute and denounce the Iraqi provocation and to assert its firm stances in support of Kuwaiti rights and the legitimate world resolutions relevant to the state of Kuwait's war. The House expressed confidence that those states will continue to safeguard the right of every country to live in security, peace and stability, far from any threat or aggression. The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Kuwaiti National Assembly, MP Muhammad Jassim al-Sagar, said these practices are not unusual to the officials of the Iraqi regime and indicate Iraq's bad intention towards Kuwait and a continuation of its destructive attitudes. Such practices will lead to divisions among Arab ranks, which arose following the 1990 invasion. The U.S. President George Walker Bush's administration warned Iraq against threatening the security and stability of its neighbors. The spokesman of the U.S. State Department, Richard Boucher, said that the use of force is still an option in case Iraq threatens its neighboring states, making new claims on the state of Kuwait or any other provocation. Boucher affirmed that information available to the U.S. State Department indicates the aggressive intentions of Iraq toward Kuwait and its neighboring countries had not changed. The spokesman emphasized that his country was aware of the recent statements of the elder son of the Iraqi president regarding the state of Kuwait and has perceived that the Iraqi intentions had to date not changed. Boucher reiterated that those developments affirmed the need to maintain the UN sanctions imposed on Iraq or even tighten them. He expressed his country's concern regarding the probability of Iraq's production of chemical and biological weapons again, thus asserting the Iraqi president's intentions to create trouble in the region. On the other hand, the U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell affirmed that the illicit Iraqi weapons program will be given early interest in the new U.S. administration's foreign policy. Powell vowed to contain the head of the Iraqi regime and reiterated that this subject will be given top priority by President George W. Bush's administration. The U.S. Secretary of State emphasized that the Iraqi regime constitutes a problem for its people, as well as to its neighbors, by insisting on developing chemical and nuclear weapons and to unveil its expansionist ambitions. Powell pointed out that it was normal from the United States to control the situation in the Gulf and specifically in Iraq, stressing that it is paramount for the United Nations and the world community to compel Iraq to implement its obligations regarding the elimination of its weapons of mass destruction. Powell reiterated that his country should always recall the destruction of Iraq's illicit weapons is part of the arms control efforts on international levels, while Iraq continues to pose a threat to its neighbors. He said the Iraqi regime was not capable of showing strength through conventional weapons, and therefore it has turned out to threaten with non-conventional weaponry.
Damage, possible misdemeanor.
I think what is clear is that there are UN resolutions in effect, UN resolutions that bind Iraq and have been telling the Iraqi regime for the last 10 years that what they have to do is to get rid of the weapons of mass destruction that we know they have been developing and have had over the years. We believe it is necessary for peace in the region and to protect the children of the region, to protect the citizens of the region, for Saddam Hussein and his associates to come forward and then to allow inspectors in so that they can verify that these weapons are no longer there, that they claim are no longer there. And so I'm sure this will be a subject that the Secretary General will discuss with the Iraqi representatives. The United States, at the same time, under President Bush's leadership, we are reviewing our policy in the region, both with respect to our responsibilities as a member of the United Nations, as well as our individual policies with respect to Iraq.
Today, as we mark the 10th anniversary of the liberation of the state of Kuwait, there are great concerns about the future of the region as long as the Iraqi president and his regime remain in power and threaten revenge against the Gulf countries.